Hey guys, welcome back to Creating Careers Podcast. On today's episode, I had a chance to sit down and talk with Mason Erwin. Mason is a photographer. Oftentimes, I see him capturing sort of the ordinary in such an extraordinary and beautiful way. Whether it's behind the scenes of a video shoot, or if he's capturing food that's been plated by some of the most incredible chefs right here in Birmingham and beyond, or if he's capturing, in some cases, just a simple hotel room and capturing the beauty, finding the light, using his patience and his artistic eye to capture the right angle at the right time in the right place. Mason really is an extremely talented creative. And I really am honored just to have the chance to talk to him, to hear his story, to sort of understand maybe a little bit of his process. And I'm really excited to bring this conversation to you today. Check it out. Mason Erwin, thank you so much for joining me today on Creating Careers Podcast. I have become a big fan of your photography. Just seeing, I think initially I was probably introduced to you by seeing you sort of cover BTS kind of stuff, or maybe it was doing some of these photo walks that you and, was it Dustin Harrelson? Did you do some photo walks with him in Birmingham for a while there? There were some people that y'all used to do that almost regularly with.
Yeah, it actually goes back to the government shutdowns during COVID. Once it was kind of safe to at least meet up out in the open, we just started getting people together. We needed to get out and create. And the first one was at the John Hand parking garage in 2020, and they were pretty regular in 2020, and then eventually died off to where it was just me and Alex Kiker, like every time. No one else would show
Yeah.
up. And then it's been a good mix of me, Alex, Dustin, Jacob through the years. And it's died down as our professional careers have taken off. And thankfully, we've been busy with good work to sustain the careers. But I do miss those photo walks. And hopefully, Dustin and I can get together again soon.
How instrumental do you feel like those kind of moments, those kind of experiences, that kind of almost camaraderie and learning from each other, how much of that do you feel like has been instrumental in your career or what you've seen even in their careers?
Yeah, I think a lot of times people are like, "Oh, like you're self-taught because you went to school for accounting," and to some degree, yeah, like no one was going to put in the hours for me to craft this in, but I learned so much just being around other creators because I look at the creative world on an individual level. We're all looking through a keyhole and trying to see what's on the other side. Everyone's got a different keyhole. We're all seeing way different things. And it's so good to be around those guys because I feel like I learned more in 5 minutes of being around Dustin, Alex, my roommate, Preston Little. I learned more in 5 minutes of just being around those guys than I do from 30 minutes of a YouTube tutorial, you know?
Yeah, it's so incredible the quality and caliber of the creatives in the Birmingham area. I'm sure everywhere has that sort of like base, but it seems like I know for this podcast, it's been so great to see the quality of the work come out of Birmingham, but even the quality of the people. Like these are just incredible people that are so easy to work with, work alongside, learn from, and are usually willing to drop so much of their own personal kind of responsibilities to come and work or communicate with somebody else that's sort of right there alongside them.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about the number of high-end creatives that we have in Birmingham is how close the majority of us are. Like, we're all like 1 degree away from each other, if not connected with each other. And I haven't really experienced any sort of like shade or someone stealing work from me. And so that's been really nice because I've seen that happen in other creative cities where there's more of a rivalry and, everyone's gatekeeping what they're doing and how they're doing it. Whereas like here, I feel there's a lot of like share the load.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's just been great to see. On top of just like learning from other creatives, it is inspiring to be around these people because there's a lot of times I get into work that I enjoy doing, but uh I separate my work between what I do with the paintbrush and what I do with a hammer. And sometimes it's hammer work and it's just like I got to bang this out, I got to deliver for the client, but it really doesn't speak to me. It doesn't really express anything of what I'm doing. Um, and when I get too loaded up on that, there's just weeks where I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. But then I go on a walk with Dustin or Jacob or Alex or Preston, and I go shoot some photos, and I'm like, okay, I'm doing this. Like, I know what I'm doing here.
Yeah, yeah. It's really, I think anytime I've had a chance to be around some of these guys you've mentioned, it's always so encouraging. I mean, first of all, just seeing the work that they're doing and being inspired by that, but then also, like you're saying, like just that encouragement you receive from these people. I mean, Alex Kiker, I've worked with him a few different times recently, and every time he's so, first of all, he celebrates everyone around him. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, look at the work you're doing. He's such a talented guy, but he's the last one to celebrate himself, and he's the first one to celebrate the person right next to him.
Mhm. Yeah, it is. It's funny because I did come from like more of a corporate accounting side, and a lot of these guys that are creators in Birmingham, especially like Harrison Tarabella and
Right.
Preston Little, I've known who they are. I've known about them since probably 2015, 2016. They had no idea who I was. I just saw photos that they took or videos that they did, and I was like, wow, like this is really inspiring. I'd love to pick up a camera. And I didn't buy my first camera till 2018, and then became friends with Harrison and Preston in 2019. And now they're some of my closest friends, and we do life together. We work together. We travel together. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier the idea of like not really having somebody almost swoop in and steal work from you. I remember Aaron Wilhite, who shared an
Yeah,
office for a while, and I think still collaborates a lot with Harrison Tarabella. But he was talking about sort of the two of them working together, and said it's not about competition, it's about collaboration, and it is that.
yeah,
I mean, I've found it even now in my work, it's you look around you at these other creatives, and rather than looking and saying how can I get a job over them, it's become almost this idea of how can I get a job that both of us can work on or multiples of us can work on. And it's become that back and forth collaboration of like they're skilled in this and I'm skilled in this, and let's see how we can bring those together to create an even better product for the client.
yeah. No, I 100% agree there. I definitely see that from creators who move out of Birmingham into other spaces, like bigger cities where it is a little more cutthroat. And there's always that allure to like, I've always wanted to be in New York City. I think the opportunity up there far exceeds the opportunities in Birmingham. And I think my work would stand out up there. But I do know for sure that I would miss the collaboration versus the cutthroat.
Yeah. Yeah, I can only imagine. Hey guys, let me take just a moment to thank our sponsor, AmFirst. I'm so excited to have a sponsor that is personally connected to me, but more importantly than that, I'm excited to have a sponsor that is connected to the Birmingham community in general. AmFirst has a 90-year history right here in Birmingham. And there's not too many communities that you can go into in central Alabama that doesn't have an AmFirst branch. When I started my small business, the first place I ended up going was AmFirst to open up a savings and checking account. There's just certain times that you need to be able to walk into a branch and talk with somebody about banking or finance. And AmFirst has branches all across Alabama. And I'm, again, thankful to have a partner to help share the stories of creatives all across central Alabama. But also, I'm thankful, and maybe even more so, I'm thankful to have a partner who helps support families and small businesses right here in Alabama. So, again, thank you to AmFirst. Thank you to you for watching this podcast. Now, back to the conversation. Well, listen, I've got a few slides that I try to stick myself to as much as I can. So let me get into some of those. For people that don't know you, that aren't maybe aren't following you on Instagram, or maybe would like to know a little bit more about you, tell us just in general, like who is Mason Irwin? And I know you go by Mason David Irwin
Yeah.
on Instagram. Is there a reason that you included your middle name? Was there way too many Mason Irwins out there?
No, it was more, my dad actually passed away when I was 11, and David was his name.
Mhm.
And so it's just a way that I can include him in my professional space and what I do and
Love
remember
that.
him.
Yeah.
Um, my mom gave me my first name, Mason, and she passed away when I was 25. So like I've got both of those names to remember them by, and they're both part of my professional career. But early on, it was Mason David Photo, and the more I got into the space, the more I realized my favorite photographers are just known by their name, not Joe Greer Photo, not Rodney
Right.
Smith Photo. It's just Rodney Smith. It's
Right.
just it's just Slim Aarons. So I wanted to just stick with my name. But yeah, who am I? Man, I'm a traveler. I grew up all over. Probably moved like 9 or 10 times growing up. Always had this inkling for photography. You can see Spider-Man in the background. I'm old enough to where when I was reading Spider-Man comics, there were no Spider-Man movies, and I felt very inspired by him. But as a 7-year-old, I was like, I'm not getting superpowers, but I can at least be a photographer and be somewhat like Peter Parker.
There you go.
Um, but as I grew up, I started to grow really tall and got sucked into basketball and dropped a lot of my artistic outlets. And it wasn't until I was in my mid 20s that, the cameras on phones really started to take off. And I got really zoned into that hobby of just taking pictures on my iPhone. I had all the moment lenses, I had all the lenses everyone was coming out with for iPhones. And eventually that led to me buying my first camera. Bought a $100 Canon off of a pawn shop on Green Springs. And the guy who encouraged me to go there actually told me, he's like, "Hey, just go get $100 camera, shoot in manual for 6 months. If you don't like it, then it's not for you because you're just not going to get the photos you want on auto." So I shot in manual for about 2 months, realized, oh, I love this. Bought a Sony, really meant it as a hobby. My mom always taught me that it's important to have an artistic outlet, a way to create and express the things that you can't create and express just through words. And so it very much was a hobby until Jannard Archibald gave me
Yeah.
my first professional job. He hit me up one day and he's like, "Hey, there's this graduation shoot that I got asked to do, and I thought I could do it, but I'm double booked. Can you do it?" And I was like, "Yeah, what do I charge?" He's like, "Oh, don't worry about it. I already got a check. I'll give it to you." I was like, "Oh, okay." So I showed up, I delivered the photos, I got paid. And my accounting background, I saw the number and I was like, okay, the math is mathing here. Like if I can get sustainable work, this hourly rate would work really well. So um, that's kind of where it all started. Really, it was a hobby. It was an outlet. It was a way for me to express myself. Um, and the more time I put in, I think eventually it resonated with people, and people hired me for my look.
Yeah. Well, I do love some of your photography, and we'll get more into that here in just a minute.
Yeah.
But talking about your journey, your creative journey, I want to ask, like, was there a creative decision that you made at some point, maybe early in your career, that you feel like really shaped the look that you have now, or just somehow shaped your work more so than anything else?
Yeah, I would say early on, I was obsessed with shooting everything on an 85 millimeter lens. It
It's a
really,
popular one. Beautiful, beautiful focal length, and
yeah,
definitely one that a lot of people capture initially.
100%. And I felt like it pushed me to get creative because I would take it out to, really small places like the atomic. Like, I would bring it everywhere. And it really goes back to my love for movies and especially anything IMAX. And I feel like 85 gets you that look. The creative decision that changed my career really was, I want to say it was 2020, 2021. Hunter Hart, photographer out at Nashville. he let me borrow a Leica Q on one of my trips. And I had no idea what Leica was, but it was the best colors I'd ever gotten on any photo I'd ever taken. So I sold two Sonys, two Fujis, six lenses, bought my first Leica Q2, which was
That
a
sounds about
28
right.
28 millimeter lens, completely opposite of the 85, and then forced me into this space of like really filling out composition versus just relying on shallow depth of field.
Mm.
And on top of that, colors have always spoken to me. I really, really struggled through the late 2010s and early 2020s when everyone was embracing this neutral, minimalistic gray. And I really just love colors. And that was my big struggle with Sony is like I wasn't a great editor early on and still struggle with editing color. Whereas the Leica glass just unlocks a whole new world of colors. And that really speaks to me.
Mm. Do you still shoot primarily on Leica?
All of my digital work is shot on Leica. Um, Eventually, I will get a Fuji body for a lot of my event photography. A lot of my event photography, I like to shoot in black and white and super wide and direct flash. And the black and white profiles on Fuji, I just really like those a lot. All of my digital work is on Leica, and all of my film work is on a Contax G1 and on a Fujifilm medium format 645 wide.
Nice. I've seen sort of, I guess, some social like reels or BTS kind of shots of yours, and I see you like on a court side with a
Yeah,
Leica, and I'm assuming like a 28 mil on there.
yeah.
How in the world do you like what does that force you to have to do to be stuck with that kind of focal length, or maybe gifted with that kind of focal length?
I really love environmental portraits. So, how can I position myself to show an angle of the subject where they are really where your attention is drawn to, but it really puts the entire environment around them. So, one of my favorite basketball shots when shooting 28 millimeter usually occurs in warm-ups or whenever there's a clear spot on a chair. But I get behind the chair and there's that little empty space where the lower back would be, and you get this shot where the bottom third of your image is the seat, and then the other two thirds are the court, the arena, and the player and the goal. And it really just provides this POV of like sitting in that seat and watching the player play. Other than that, it really got me out of my comfort zone as far as like having to get closer to subjects. I really don't like being the center of attention. I don't like people looking at me, especially thousands in a basketball arena, and so it really pushed me out of my comfort zone to start shooting wide.
Yeah, I mean, like you were saying earlier, so many, or I guess I said earlier, so many people start off with that 85, and it's a portrait lens oftentimes, just because you do get that shallow depth of field. The bokeh just sort of takes over the rest of the background, but it removes so much context. A
Hmm.
28, I mean, it really does. It forces you to focus on your subject with some other means other than just shallow depth of field. What are some of the tricks that you've found to make a subject pop when there's so much other context to the situation surrounding them that could potentially overtake the attention of the viewer?
Yeah. So, gosh, nothing but filler words right there.
It's like
Uh,
usually people say, "That's a good question." And that's usually their time. They're trying to think, how in the
yeah.
world am I going to answer this question?
No, I knew exactly how I was going to answer it, just didn't know how to segue into it. But basically, what I'm looking for is what in the environment can contrast with their skin or what they're wearing. So, Samford basketball, usually they're wearing white jerseys at home. So, if I get and take a low enough angle, the seats in the arena are all a dark navy blue. And so when it's shoot around and it's empty, if I get low, their white jerseys are going to contrast with that blue. And so I can get a lot of negative space of this dark blue and then this foreground of the really bright floor because the lights are on it. And then there's the subject right there popping out of the blue. Um, Anything else on the 28 millimeter as far as like environmental portraits? I'm either looking for the most overpowering light in the situation and getting the subject close to that and then severely underexposing so they're almost spotlit.
Yeah.
I'm If you've ever seen the Lord of the Rings trilogy, I
Yeah.
just rewatched them in theaters, and Peter Jackson, and I can't remember who his DP was for that, but they just master and crush the Rembrandt lighting in every single one of those shots. And it makes sense as far as like the motivating light in every scene. They never really skip a beat on that. But that's what I go for with the 28 millimeter and shooting these wide angle portraits. If it's not a basketball game and it's more of like following someone around to get some lifestyle shots, we're just looking for that overpowering light and then creating that shadow across their face.
I love it, man. I mean, obviously lighting and colors, that's how you do highlight or make something stand out from everything else around it. Okay, so you've even mentioned it on here, but I'm reading your website. You talk about your love for cinema, your love for film, and how that's impacted your photography. Well, how does that actually show up in the moment when you're taking a photo? Like how do you process in your mind, or maybe it's less actually, I guess, demanding your thought now. It's probably become natural, but at some point, maybe early on in your career, how were you being really intentional of taking what's influenced you in film and relating it to photography?
I think the most common technique that I use really goes into what am I trying to do here? And what I'm trying to do with most photos is make you feel small when you look at them. In the way that, like, when you're a kid and you walk into, this big restaurant for the first time, and then 20 years later you go back in and you're like, oh, like this is a pretty small place.
Yeah.
So I start shooting from the hip more often because the way a kid sees things, everything's so much bigger. So that middle picture that you have pulled up is from a hotel in Slovenia, and what you're doing is you're looking at Castle Bled right there. Now that little piece in the bottom third, that is the corner of the bed, and so I'm shooting really low there. And honestly, the one on the far left too. That was on 20. All of these are on. No, the far right one's not on 28 millimeter, but the far left one is. That one right there, I'm holding my camera just above the water and then pointed up. So that boat was a little ways away from us, but I wanted to get mostly sky as the top 2/3 of it
Well,
and
it's a
just make
great
it
way to
look like this.
contrast them from the sky. I mean, they're a little bit more in, you're on the shadow side, so you're getting the light barely sort of cresting around them, and then you get that blue sky with those clouds. It's a beautiful shot. It really is. You were saying that just you get basically a lower angle, and that's meant to evoke a feeling or like a
Yeah.
nostalgia to it.
Yeah, when you look at it, it's meant to make everything look bigger. It's actually how a lot of real estate photography is done from the hip level or just like right above that, to make everything feel bigger and a little more grand. Um, Other than that, like I really just I try to remember my favorite shots in movies when I'm doing a shoot and figure out how, like, all right, how can we incorporate this here. um, a recent one that's on my mind is towards the end of Alien. There's a part where Ripley reaches out over the ladder, and Ridley Scott does a good job of just like really focusing in on her knuckles. And recently, I was doing a workout shoot for Bennett Looper, and we got a really great shot of him going to grab the bar to do some lat pull downs, and we got this really clean like focus on like f1.4 of his knuckles coming across the knurling on the bar, and then the rest of the shoot, we guess what we shot on 85 to give this really nice tight compressed look in the gym.
What was the focal length at the time of the knuckles on the bar?
That was 85, and then I think he cropped in a little bit. We were shooting on an FX3, so I don't know what resolution we were at, but it was enough to where he could crop in and make it feel more like a 135.
Okay. Yeah, if it's a photo on an FX3, you're only working with like 12 megapixel
Yeah,
compared
and
to
oh
probably what
yeah,
you're used to working with.
So this is actually more for my DP work. I'm starting to step into a role where I do more DP work, and that's
Okay.
all because, just inspired by movies. I don't want to direct, I don't want to edit. I really just want to compose and you know, do what I do in photos, but for video.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it makes sense. I mean, the idea of framing a still versus framing a scene. There's a lot of overlap, a lot of similarity, a lot of compositional best practices. So, well, that's awesome. I'm excited to see more of that. Bennett is one of those that I've wanted to get on here. He's such a talented creative. I love his own personal sort of brand stuff that he's been doing for the past few years. He does really great job of. I'm always amazed at him setting a camera somewhere and then just going and running in front of it. It's like
Yeah,
that's what I see him do so much. It seems like, and he's masterful at it.
he is a one man show and he does it really, really well.
Yeah. Well, it's good to know that he's got at least somebody else behind the camera he's working with as well. So
Well, I told him that I wanted to get into more of this DP space, and we go way back to when he was at Samford, and he was actually at the first photography meetup in 2020. Um, and I told him, I was like, hey, man, all of these deals that you're getting, let's throw a DP budget in there. And if they say yes, then they say yes. And guess what? You don't have to tripod and figure it all out yourself. Like, I'll tag along and shoot things for you. I'm just not editing anything.
okay, we know where you draw the line.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so I want to talk about some of your food stuff. I think you mentioned even in on your website again just how important the people are.
yeah.
And I see a lot of times when you're doing your photography for restaurants or food, it seems that I see that. I see the hands, I see the faces of these chefs. How important to you is the I guess the people being seen in your photos, the people that are behind these masterpieces, so to speak, of food.
Uh, I would say the food is really nothing without the people. I have one photo of a dish that did really well that didn't have any human element in it. Other than that, the best pictures that I take all have a human element in it. Like it has to bring it to life. And I've recently been reminded of this because I would say in the past 2 or 3 months, somewhere along the way, I just got so busy that I was focused on, delivering a good product for my client, but I forgot to tell the story of the people making it.
Mm.
And that's something that I've been reminded of lately. And so it's funny that you bring it up because that's just been front of mind for me. Um, that's what keeps the drive alive is the people. You can only tell stories about food and these inanimate things for so long before you get burnt out. But the part that actually keeps the passion alive for shooting food is the people behind the food. Uh,
Yeah.
and that's how I got started, really. I never wanted to be a food photographer, actually. When I bought my first camera, I actually told myself, I was like, I'm never shooting food. I do not want to do this at all. Um, but it was actually a dinner that I got invited to for my birthday several years ago. And I used to work in a kitchen, so I told the chef, I was like, "Hey, do you mind if I take some photos? I got my little, Q2 with me." He's like, "Oh yeah." And we hit it off. And at the end of the night, I'm like, hey, if you need a photographer, like I don't really shoot food, but I'd be down to shoot some kitchen stuff and some food stuff. And he's like, oh no, like I have a guy out in New York and he comes down every now and then. I was like, okay, understandable. 6 months go by. I send him the photos and he hits me up and he's like, hey, I need you tonight. And I was like, all right, cool. And he's like, don't worry, I'm going to pay you. I got a check already. It's like, sweet, sweet, sweet. I'll be there. And then that really started it. That was my first retainer. That was my first food client, and it's really been nothing but up from there. I think the thing that shied me away from food photography was, you know, I would go to a restaurant and see someone standing on a chair and shooting down, and I was still in this phase where I was just very much shy and didn't want to be getting that kind of attention anywhere. Um, because now I'll get on the ladder to get a photo.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But I really do enjoy it.
Yeah. I
It's a lot
think
of fun.
so much of the creative work that people do, it's you have to get past that idea of like people looking at you. I mean, you're behind the scenes, but oftentimes that puts you front and center. You know, you're behind
Yeah.
the scenes of the camera, but as far as everyone else in the space, you're usually the one that sticks out the most. You know, because you're the one getting up in there trying to get the shot.
Yeah.
I can imagine those, especially in restaurants, that can be quite intimidating.
And to give you an idea, when I was in middle school, I had to do speech therapy because I got so nervous like just reading in front of people in class, like not even getting up in front of the class, just sitting at my desk reading the book when my name was like I would forget to breathe and I would pass out. So like that's how crazy it used to be for me. But, going back to how important the people are, I think like once I'm connected to someone's story and telling it, like I don't really care if I get seen or not. Like I've got to tell the story and I've got to get out there and shoot for them. And it doesn't really matter who's watching, who's looking, or what I look like doing it. Like I'm getting the shot.
Yeah. Does it ever is it ever hard for you to I mean, I would imagine you get to really know these people and know their story, and a frame can tell so much of a story. But I mean, I work in video mostly. I feel like video gives you that opportunity to sit them down and say, "Okay, now tell me your story on camera and let me share that." Do you ever find it frustrating or limiting in how much of somebody's story you can really tell in photography?
I tend to do get pretty frustrated. But one thing I've been reminding myself of recently is the the stuff that you don't see in photography also follows the rule of thirds. And what I mean by that is a third of my work is going to make me feel really, really great. And a third of it's going to be like, awesome, this is great storytelling. It is showing versus telling. A third of my work is just going to be like, okay, like I can deliver that. Like they're going to post it. It'll be good for their website. It'll be good for their marketing. The client's going to enjoy it. And then another third of it is like, yeah, I'm deleting that in, like right now. And so I've been giving myself a lot more grace there, which that's been a great conversation I've had with a lot of creatives in Birmingham recently is like, how do you balance that giving yourself grace versus also being ambitious in a space where there are some black and white things, but it's also art. So there are some not so black and white things. And you can't always control every variable when you're trying to tell a story. You can do the best you can, but at the end of the day, there's just so many variables that go into storytelling visually. So I, I I'm very grateful when we get the shot, and I get very excited. But I also don't beat myself up when we get an okay shot.
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing. I think way too many of us beat ourselves up comparing ourselves to somebody else, and especially with social media, you know how it is. Everybody puts their best and most powerful stuff out there on social media, and it's really hard to constantly compare yourself to somebody's best all the time when
Hmm.
no one's at their best all the time. And I've known many times where I get sort of beat down and almost discouraged because of the fact that I feel like I'm not always able to deliver the best, so to speak, whatever that may be in my mind at the time. So grace is definitely something I think we all need to practice towards ourselves and towards each other. And then also humility is a big thing I've always encouraged. I used to teach in middle schools and high schools, and one of the big things I always encouraged was some humility. You know, we all need to recognize that we're not as good as we think we are sometimes, and we can always learn and grow. But then also, it goes back to that grace. Give everyone else the chance to be the same way. You know, they're
Yeah.
not all as great as maybe we even think other people are, and there's always room for growth, and we need to extend that same grace to others. So, but I love that, man. I love your mentality about it.
Yeah, it's it you touched on it, but like it's I've noticed that with all the photographers that I've look up to and I've talked to, they all have the common theme of they get imposter syndrome, but that's what drives them to continue to improve on things and really focus on their look. But it's important to draw that line between ambition and comparison. And I think that's been the biggest thing that I've had to grow in the last year is really trust that my look will develop and that I don't need to make my stuff look like, so and so's work
Yeah.
because then it doesn't look like my work.
Exactly, exactly. You gotta find where you fit. I've
Hmm.
done that with sort of the niche that I've finally found myself in, and even still, I have to remind myself, my niche needs this, and that's
Hmm.
what I deliver. There's other stuff out there that I may think looks better, sounds better, is better developed story or something like that, but not all of that is necessary for my niche, so sometimes you got to know your clients and the type of need that you meet, and sort of sometimes base your value on meeting that need versus meeting some hypothetical other need that may be out there.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, let's talk about success. How do you measure success yourself for your own work? I know here we are, like going straight from humility and grace, success. How do we get there? But then also, like, how do you encourage others? Maybe some of these other creatives that you're working around that are we're all aspiring to succeed in the work that we're doing.
Uh, I will let you know when I figure out the answer to that question.
That's a great
Because
answer. That's a
because
great answer.
I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. Like I see that word success pop up, and I don't think I've thought of myself as successful more than a handful of times in the last 7 years since getting a camera. Um, and it's not that part of it is I'm very hard on myself to a fault, but the other part is um, it's more about like, okay, is the client happy? Do they like what they have? And then do I have work that I can look back on and be like, man, I really expressed myself there, or I really did something I thought I couldn't do. I would say like I've done that enough, and if I do that enough, then I know I can keep moving forward. But to me, uh, I really got to change my definition of things. That's something that I'm working on right now because the idea of success in my mind is like, all right, job's done. But with photography and where I want to be, and I want to be doing this till I'm old and gray. Like there's really not like a success, and then I'm done. It's more of like, all right, that was good. Move on to the next one. Let's move on to the next one. So,
Yeah.
I think that's probably the next step in my journey is figuring out, okay, how do I set these benchmarks of I can be like, okay, that was a good success and that was a good win and really celebrate that versus, all right, that was cool. Next thing, you know, I think that would be a much healthier spot to be in.
I agree. I agree. Well, let me celebrate two photos that you have here on this page, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
And I
go for
could
it.
do that with multiple ones, but these two bottom photos, the one of the hotel and the
Yeah.
one of the hotel room, I believe this is.
Yes.
Um, these are things, and this is what I think is so great about photography, specifically photographers like yourself, that I feel like really nail sort of the challenge of what I'm about to talk about. Who knows how many people walk up to buildings or come into these kind of hotel rooms or any kind of space, and they see it from the same perspective or the same angle, just whatever the walk-in kind of angle is. I feel like we all become desensitized to the beauty around us. And what's great about, I would say this about any kind of composition, whether it's film or photography, it's about getting people to like stop and reassess this space from a different vantage point, whether it's the lighting looks a little bit different or the foreground objects are there, or maybe it's in the case of the the room, to be honest, I don't even know what it is, but it's like you've captured these elements or these spaces in such a beautiful way. And a lot of times, again, so many people probably walk into these and never think anything of it. They set their stuff down on the bed. They, turn on the TV if there's even one in that hotel room. I'm assuming there is. And then they go to bed and they get up the next day and they walk out and they never even think of the beauty that they were just in. And so props to you on just taking a moment, and I would imagine you saw it with your eye to some degree before you saw it with your camera. And I think that's what's so incredible with people that like yourself that are looking for that all the time. Like what, and so props, but then also I guess the question would be, how do you do it? How do you walk? What kind of mentality do you have that makes you walk into a space and look for this kind of stuff?
Thank you. That does mean a lot. I do really enjoy the details that people put into living spaces, especially in hotels. Uh, I think with this one in particular, it was more of I walked into the lobby, and this is the Graduate down in Auburn.
Yeah.
And the Graduate hotels do a great job of celebrating each college town's, university. And I saw the amount of just character in the lobby. I was like, oh, these rooms are going to be special. So it was one of those things that like I was really honed in on and looking for when I came in. Um, but the first thing I do when I get into a hotel room like this is I try not to mess with anything. I put all of my stuff as close to the door as I can, don't touch anything, and I try to move around without making a mark so that I can see every angle, look where the light's coming from in the window, and then I have an app that shows me an augmented reality path for the sun, so I can see where the sun's going to be at what time and how it's going to be coming through the window. So I actually waited a good while to take that shot. Before that, the sun was a bit higher and I was getting more of soft light. And so I actually had my tripod set up on the opposite wall and was doing a self portrait that was more symmetrical, kind of Wes Anderson focused. And then once the sun dropped a little lower and we got that direct light and we got that shadow on the wall from the curtain. Uh, yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those things that once someone showed me how to look for light in like some really practical ways. Like I don't know if you've ever seen the hand technique before. Have you seen the hand technique?
I don't. I'm thinking. I'm assuming it's one of those where you just sort of hold it out and look at your hand sort of in the light to see where it's hitting.
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
So there's a lot of times
I've
where,
seen it. I just don't think I've ever had it explained.
yeah, so like obviously if the sun's out, you know where the light's coming from, you know how it's going to look, you know that if, your subject has their back to the sun, you expose for their face and it's going to be, really bright and bloomy. But when it's overcast, it's really hard to tell which direction your light is going. And so that's where you kind of do a 360 holding your hand in front of you and watch it change tones. And you see exactly where it's the brightest. And then you figure out, all right, do you want your subject to be bright and flat? Do you want it to be dramatic? Then you know where to position it. And so I'll even do that when I walk into a room, just because sometimes like there's a light that I can miss. Like I hate that when I'm shooting a dish specifically and I miss a light and I see this little orange glow on the plate. And I'm like, I got to Photoshop that out of like 30 photos now.
Yeah.
Whereas walking around a room and just looking at my hand, I can see, all right, there's light coming from over here. Can we do anything about it? Can we do anything about it this way? And a lot of the times I'm running a one man show, so I don't have like a production crew where like I have someone responsible just for lighting. And I don't have this whole, grip truck where I can just go flag it all off. So the hand technique has really come in handy. And especially in instances like that where I'm just walking to a space I've never been into and trying to just see where the light's coming from.
I need to revoke my props and escalate it like 150% and then give it again, but in a much more celebratory way, I feel like, because what I was imagining you doing whenever you walk into this room versus the reality of what you did took so much more understanding and patience and work, which I think is something that a lot of people in photography, especially nowadays in digital photography, we're all photographers in some ways,
Mhm.
because we all have a camera we're walking around with and constantly taking pictures. And then somebody gets, like we talked about earlier, gets a new camera with an 85 millimeter,
Yeah.
and suddenly now they're a portrait photographer and they're selling their services, right? It
Yeah.
I think too many times we discredit the amount of work that goes into some really beautiful photography, that takes intentionality. It takes, like we said, patience, and it takes a lot of understanding and know-how of not only the camera body, but even the way that light and point of view really change everything in an image.
Mhm.
So props to you again. And then secondly, like, what do you tell somebody that wants to be a photographer, that wants to really take their stuff to another level? What would you tell them as far as like the first step, or maybe
Yeah.
the next step, to really evolve photography from maybe more of a hobby to more of a profession?
I bring everything back to my story and my experience. And the reason I did not buy a camera till I was 25 or 26, whatever it was, 20, 27. Trying to think here. Yeah, I was 27. Um, I was afraid of being bad. I'm a math guy. I'm a science guy. I'm a history nerd. Uh, I've auditioned a gajillion times to be on Jeopardy. I'm not an art guy. I love the movies. I grew up in theater. Like, I do enjoy it, but I never saw myself as an artist. And that's the way I embraced photography. There is a science to it. Like,
Mm,
yes, there is an art, but there's very much a science. We know what looks good. That's why we have color theory. We know what looks good. That's why we have nine different composition rules that all work well. And light, light is all science. The way that I explain it to people who want to get in early on is there's a way to quote unquote work out every day, and that is find light and see how light is revealing itself to you. All color is the way that we see light reflected off of surfaces. That's all it is. So if you can nail your light, you're going to nail your color. Practice that over and over and over again. I keep coming back to the Leica Q2. I've taken over 1 million photos on it. The way I know that is the photo count resets after 500,000, and it's reset twice now. So I was explaining to you the hotel room, that whole process of figuring out how I was going to get that shot took me probably 15 seconds to
right.
just think about. And I'm like, okay, the light's going to happen here. It's going to happen here. Cool. I'll do it then. I'll go do something else till then. But it only happened that quickly in my head because I've taken well over 1 million photos in my free time in the last 7 years. And that's just one camera. I think I've owned like 9 or 10 cameras. So that's just one camera where I've taken over 1 million photos. So I tell people, hey, drill in on the science because you can really get reps out of that and you can work your brain that way. And once you follow all the rules and you figure out how to nail lighting and nail composition, you can take a good photo. The great photo comes in when you put your expression on it and you figure out how you feel and how you want to tell it. That's how you make a great photo. Can I make someone feel something with my photo? So I always tell people, do your best to get to where taking good photos is just kind of natural, and then taking great photos becomes that expression and that outlet of actually telling stories through art.
Yeah, I would encourage anybody that is getting into photography also to do a little bit of what you did. Get off of the tight lens,
Yeah.
step back, get a wide angle, and
Hmm.
figure out how to make the subject pop.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so much of the framing that I see in yours. Not all on this page, but on your Instagram in general.
Hmm.
So much of it is those wider shots, and I just think it takes a little extra work, but I think overall it's one of those things, it benefits you forever once you learn
Yeah.
how, with various focal lengths, but especially a wide focal length, to get a beautiful, attention getting, captivating, emotional
Yeah.
image. So,
I also to kind of piggyback on that, like your first lens should be a prime. Don't get a zoom, get a
yeah,
prime. Figure out because that's when you really figure out like, okay, sometimes I will have to switch into manual focus, and I am gonna have to know like how far away is this person, and you're gonna have to be able to eyeball that stuff sometimes.
yeah,
So yeah, I would say what you said, wider, go prime. Um, Go cheap on the camera. Like the pawn shop move was great. I'm so glad I did that because there's so many people who just go buy something really expensive and then they end up selling it because it's not what they thought it was going to be. I'm glad I bought just $100 camera to start and got some great photos that way.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Uh,
Uh,
the other thing I'll tell people is kind of counter creative culture. I think it's very, and I've been waiting to say this. I
you heard it here first, people.
I have heard too often gear doesn't matter. Okay. As an artist, if you are just trying to express in some way, gear is not everything. If you are doing this professionally, gear 100% matters. Is it everything? No.
Right.
It's not everything, but it definitely matters. You There's just certain things you cannot get by with from a camera that was made over 10 years ago. You just can't. And it depends on the client's needs too. But for all the people out there who are like, "Oh, gear doesn't matter," it 100% matters.
Yeah.
And I will,
I
I
will
will,
say,
I'll die
I
on that hill.
I did recently have a conversation with a guy that works with me. He's a younger
Hmm.
photographer wanting to move more into video,
Yeah.
and he was talking about the limitations of his camera. His camera is you know, a crop sensor camera. It's older. Definitely, there's newer, better ones out. But
Hmm.
one thing that I told him, and I say this, I don't think this counters what you said at all,
No.
but I think it's something to go alongside. It's a pairing with that. He's like, man, I wish I had this camera because I need like I want to do more video work. And I said, does your camera do video? He said, yeah. And I was like, and you've got great lenses because I know he's got great lenses he's using already for his photography. And I'm like, just go create stuff. Now it's
Yeah.
one thing if you're doing it for clients,
Yeah.
but he's just wanting to grow and even create his own personal stuff. I was like, go do it. Quit using the excuse of not having the right camera body. Ultimately, if you're just waiting around for the next technology to make it easier to create, you're taking opportunity from yourself to learn and grow.
Yeah.
It's like you can get a camera that's going to do everything for you, I'm sure, and be incredible, but you're going to be worse off for it.
Yeah.
So sometimes it depends. If the gear is what you're using as an excuse to not create because you don't have access to the
Mhm.
right gear, then you need to get over that and you need to get out there and you need to create. And sometimes the limitations that certain gear has, it makes you better hone your skills to where when you do have the budget for the bigger, better gear, your skills are there, regardless of the gear. So,
100%.
yeah,
I agree 100%. As an artist, if you have a camera, you can express through light, sound, color right there.
yeah,
Um, Now, for client work, if you need higher resolution, you need higher resolution. But as an artist, just trying to create video and express yourself, yeah, you work with what you got. And I mean, it sounds like it's probably is it like a Sony A6400, something like that?
yeah.
Yeah, it shoots. Does it shoot in log? I'm pretty sure those shoot in
Yeah, it
log.
shoots
Yeah,
S-Log 2. It has S-Log 3. I've always heard you don't shoot S-Log 3 on those 8-bit ones. So,
yeah. I mean, that's an incredible amount of data to work with. Yeah, I mean that kind of actually just feeds into the point of like when you're doing this as an art, like you work with what you got and you'll be able to express the right thing. When you're doing this for a client, you just need to make sure you have the right tools. That's it.
yeah,
You don't
yeah,
have to have a Hasselblad X2D 100C2 to take the right photo. Like you don't. What's the phase one that Ann Leibovitz is working with right now?
I
It's like
I
it's an $80,000 camera. You don't need
right.
that.
Yeah,
You just
yeah.
don't. Maybe she does because she's shooting
Well,
Messi and Leo, but
and the gear is never going to make you a better artist. You know what I mean? Like
no.
that's never going to do it. You put the gear, the most amazing gear in incompetent hands, and you're still
Hmm.
going to get incompetent product. But if you do even like the minimal gear
Hmm.
incompetent in hands that are competent,
Yeah.
then suddenly then you've got a real chance of some art there.
I think from a technical standpoint, you are 100% correct. Gear is not going to make you a better artist from on like a spec side, on a technical
Right.
side. One thing I really learned from Hunter Hart, and I really fought him on this for a while because I was shooting everything Sony for the longest time, and I loved it. I really enjoyed the menu layout. I enjoyed my glass. I enjoyed the ability to shoot in low light settings without much noise. He always told me he was going through camera switches left and right. And I was like, why? And he's like, if I pick it up and it makes me want to create something, I'm going to use that camera.
Hmm.
And there was at one point he switched from Leica to Fuji XH2 and XH2S, and he ran with it. He loved using those cameras. And I think now he's been on Nikon for about 2 or 3 years. Their mirrorless cameras have been amazing.
Oh yeah.
And he's been killing it with that. But that's just something I've like noticed more and more. So I was actually in the market recently to get the Hasselblad X2D 100C. Love the colors on it, and I picked it up and I was just like, this doesn't make me feel like I want to go shoot anything. Like it's just kind of there. Um, I picked up the Fujifilm medium format GFX 102. Love everything I've ever seen on it. Like, I mean, it has the second largest sensor next to an ARRI Alexa. Like, it's insane the specs on
Hmm.
that thing. Picked it up, shot with it, just didn't feel like using it. And I love Fuji. The Fuji X100V and X100VI have been in my bag for a long time, and I love those. But the GFX 102 just didn't do it for me. Whenever I pick up my Contax film camera, whenever I pick up my point and shoot Leica, like those make me want to go do things.
Well, it sounds like I mean, ultimately, a camera being used is a better one than the one on the shelf, no matter what it is.
100%.
Yeah, no matter how much it cost.
Yeah,
So, I
you
love it. I
know,
love it.
yeah, it's 100. That camera has been 100% worth it for me. I will never sell that thing.
Mm. Well, I want to get behind the scenes on one of your
Yeah.
shoots. I want to see some of these moments, especially with the food photography. But man, if there's ever a chance you need somebody just to hold a light, I'll stand there and hold a light for you, or the ladder that you're climbing up on to get the shot. So
Yeah,
you
what's
let me
what's
know.
your rate? I'll include it in the budget.
I think you can handle it no problem. So, all right, let's talk about the invisible work is what I'm sort of titling this slide. I'm trying a little bit different titles on my slides. If you haven't noticed that, if you've seen maybe some of my previous interviews, but I want to ask you like what part of photography or the photography process do people never get to see? You know, maybe it is the
Mhm.
latter we just talked about, but that you think really matters the most. Like what's something that's behind the scenes? No one will ever know that you do it unless they see on site.
Oh man.
Maybe it was some of that stuff you were just talking about with timing up the sun.
Yeah, part of it is that that's one of those things that goes back to like just putting in the reps and then things just become intuitive. I would say like that's the biggest piece of invisible work. Is really like when you have the time, like put in the reps. Like the more photos that you take, the better you will get at this. I would say something that I haven't really mentioned yet, and like it's especially since you're bringing up some of my favorite portrait work, um, is just communicating with the subject. So on the far left one, the hat tip of the Stetson, that's one of my best friends, Drake. Uh,
Such
it
a
was
great
really
photo.
It's really funny because that was like our fifth or sixth just photography trip together. We've been literally all over the country together, and we always do this hat tip shot because he always has a hat with him. But this is by far my favorite one that I have. But it was really funny because like he had to contain himself because I was like, let's do the hat tip. And he's like, not again. And I'm like, yeah, again. The jumping over to the far right is a great filmmaker, Connor Kelly. He was in Birmingham for a bit, but now he's out in Missouri. He's actually, I'm not can't give any details, but he's working on writing a TV show, and he's been killing it out there, filming stuff. But this one, like, obviously want to express him as a filmmaker, so I got him with the Super 8 camera in hand. Um, but anytime I give someone that prop, their eye always like squints up, and I'm like, "Hey, like, relax." He's like, "What?" And I'm like, "Relax. I can see your eyes still through this. Like, we got to relax here." And I also had Preston Little right behind me helping try to direct this. This was a portrait session for his birthday, and this is like in between both of us just dying of laughter. And I'm like, "All right, we got to dial it in here. We got to get this photo." Um, the
Isn't that what
middle,
it's really all about though? It's those moments in between the frames, man. It's the shared experience.
yeah.
Um, I mean, especially with those, I mean, that makes me wish I was there with you just to experience the stuff around the photo. I mean, I value the photo. I look at these photos and I think they're
Mhm.
beautiful, but the experiences that you shared with these people are even more beautiful. So props, man. That's awesome. I love the story behind it.
Well, and the fun part is figuring out what subjects you're trying to make feel comfortable and what subjects you're trying to make feel uncomfortable. I would say, and I would say in all of these photos, the goal was to get them in their element, except for Johnny Cupcakes. So that's the one where he's got his hands like this.
Yeah.
Um, his stuff's incredible. He was in town to as a guest speaker at Sloss Tech, and me, Jannard, and Dustin had this makeshift photo booth in the basement of the Lyric. That's where we're at for that. And
Mm.
just given his personality, I was like, I'm putting on this fisheye, and I'm getting super close. And I was like, man, I want you to just like grab me. He's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, just do it. And he's like, all right, cool. Um,
What is that millimeter of that fisheye? That's got to be like
7.5.
three. What?
It's a 7.5 millimeter,
Wow.
and it was $49 on eBay.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome. That's
I've
such
got
a how many times have you actually used it?
Oh, I use it all the time. What's
Really?
hilarious is I have like during that shoot, I've got two $6,000 Leica lenses sitting there on the table, and I'm like, we're pulling the $49 lens out. We're gonna get the shot.
And what body were you putting that on?
The Leica SL2,
Yeah.
um, and yeah, I actually learned that from another photographer here in town. Like sometimes to get something out of the subject, you really got to get. You don't want to like turn them off to the photo shoot, but you kind of want to get them out of their comfort zone because a lot of times people say, "Oh, I want portraits," and they have this very rigid idea in their head of what they're going to come in and do and how they're going to be, and like what they think it looks like on camera is not what it looks like on camera, and you have to break them out of that to get
Mm.
real emotion coming out of them. So it's not just this like rigid facade. Um, some people they know what they're doing in front of camera. Like Drake has, I've taken a million photos of him. Connor Kelly, I've taken a million photos of him. Even that bottom wedding, I was actually a groomsman in that wedding. That's one of my best friends, Chad and Morgan, and taken a million photos of Chad and Morgan. So like they knew what to do, and the whole idea there was I had this like almost Cinderella idea of like going up to Gabriella Manor, like it's this grand castle, and she's coming down the staircase there. Um, but yeah, I would say like another part of that invisible work is which subjects am I trying to get comfortable? Which ones am I trying to make uncomfortable?
I can. Well, and again, those the so much of the invisible work is those relationships and those moments, those interactions with these people. Um, and it looks like you killed it, man. All right, what's next for you?
You went deep into the mat for those photos. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
your Facebook, man. You leave them
Oh
all out
man.
there. There's no hiding. You are not ashamed of
There's
the photo gallery that you've created there, and you shouldn't be. They were great.
the good and the bad, they all come together. I have no guilty pleasures, just stuff that I enjoy.
I don't know. That one photo makes it look like you got a few guilty pleasures.
Which one? The
The
sombrero
middle
or
one, yeah.
the middle one? Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, the bottom one was at camp. We were doing a Mexican party. The top one with the handprint, that was like the Urukai, Lord of the
Yeah.
Rings
Yeah.
for Beach Olympics. And then The luau one, that was fraternity party in college, and just had to strike a pose for the camera.
Yeah. Hey, you got some great ones out there, man. I mean, I think I may have another slide. I'm trying to remember, but I mean, I got some kid photos of you on here. I mean, it was great. A lot of people like it's hard to find things, like they curated this like perfect image of themselves of like they were never young, they were never just beginning.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate people that put themselves out there and put their work out there to be
hmm
seen. So,
Well, with Facebook, I think if we're not friends, you can just like see a couple like profile pictures. But once you're friends, you can see everything, and I'm cool with that.
I like it. I like it. All right. Well, so what's next for you? What's coming up? Is there an evolution? I mean, you've already talked about DP. That's something you're wanting to get into more so. But is there a big opportunity upcoming, or is there a big growth that you sort of are aiming towards? What's next in general? Obviously, you told me before we started recording something that's coming up very soon, family wise, right?
Family wise, hopefully be an uncle sometime in the next week or so. I Part of growing up, my dad lived in this little Japanese neighborhood pocket of Orlando, so I grew up very influenced by early anime, and all my Pokemon cards were in Japanese because that's how the person down the street sold them. So Japan has always been like number one destination for me. I'm
Yeah.
going February 18th.
N-
So
nice.
me and Zach Salter, a great filmmaker out of Port Angeles, Washington. He does a lot of nature content and what I would call kind of like hope core. He does a really good job of just expressing like peace and good sentiment, and he does it all fantastic through great color and good visuals.
What
But
part of Japan are y'all going to?
the majority of our time will be in Tokyo. I would say like 60%, and then the other 40 will be split between Kyoto and Osaka. Kyoto is
Okay.
probably the one I'm most excited for.
Okay. I've got family that's from Okinawa. So
Okay, very
that's what
cool.
I've always wanted to go and just sort of see where it's my aunt, where she came from, where she grew up. One of the most amazing, godly women that I know.
That's
And
awesome.
so one day maybe I'd love to go to Japan. So, but
So
what's the mission, so to speak, there?
I have two brands that we're shooting for that will basically just get them marketing content in Tokyo and Kyoto in these spaces and aesthetic places that you just can't really find here in the States. People are, people want some of their stuff shot over there, especially
Yeah.
if it goes along with the message of their product or brand. And he's got 4 or 5 brands on board as well. But he's also Japanese Native American, so it'll be fun to visit some places that are important to his family. Outside of Japan, I'm trying. My youngest sister graduates from high school this year, and my other sister graduated 2 years ago. So as a late graduation present for Chaley and early graduation for my sister Lindsay, I'm trying to take them to Italy in June. My sister will not get her passport though. She's being lazy. So if she watches this,
Hey,
Lindsay,
yeah.
go get your passport. You have no excuses.
Yeah, just hey, take one and leave the other. I mean, it's she
Yeah,
had her chance, right?
yeah, she had her
I have a
chance.
passport if you need a another, traveler, just FYI. My wife does too. She would love to go to Italy. So you
Yeah,
let us know
so
when we need to have our bags packed.
yeah, so that would be really awesome. I am really praying about and exploring opportunities to do missionary photography work. I
Yeah.
really have been feeling called to this aspect of photojournalism within the missionary space. Never been overseas, and it doesn't have to be overseas. It can be stateside. It could be here at home. Um, but I think that. Uh, there's got to be a way for me to give this gift back to the Lord. And I think that's one way that He's calling me. Another way is I worked at Kanakuk for a very long time, and one of my former co counselors is now a men's director out there. And so I try to go back every Uncle Week, which is basically where all the veteran guy staff come and do all the heavy lifting to get camp set up. And I love just going back to volunteer, pour into those guys, and give them the gift of, images from some of the best days of their lives.
That's cool. Well, I mean, I think photography is just one of those things that everyone needs. I mean, there's always a need for photography to tell the story of what's taking place or what's being done. And I think it's awesome that here you are, obviously with opportunity to make money and do it, but then at the same time you're looking for opportunities to give that as a gift, or a service. So that's
Yeah.
really cool. I look
And I,
forward to seeing the Japan stuff. I imagine in Tokyo you should have lots of opportunities to find lighting and then contrast that with the darker background. So I look forward to seeing sort of how you play with some of the light there in Tokyo.
Yeah, I'm excited to get there. But another final like thing of like what's next I wanted to touch
Yeah.
on is Studio Lucid. I work a lot with the owners there on the creative direction of the studio and how it brands itself. But I'm looking to do a headshot night soon for creatives and young professionals, and try to get some just connection going there.
Yeah.
There's new creatives coming to Birmingham. It feels like every month, moving from all over. So would love to get more people connected there. So
Yeah.
that'll probably be the first week of March, like the week I get back from Japan.
That's really cool. Well, I'm hoping more and more creative meetups we need to be doing in these areas. So I think that sounds great. Lucid, I know that's hello. We've talked about him multiple
Gennard.
times. Gennard, yeah,
Yeah.
Gennard, I think is partners in that.
Yep.
He's so talented, and that studio space I've seen show up in more and more places that creatives, as they post pictures or video of shoots they've had. I've seen that place show up more and more. So it seems like it's meeting a need, and I'm sure it can meet even more.
Yeah. No, I'm very excited for the future of Lucid. I actually have a can of paint over in the corner of my room. I've got this custom paint maker out of Orlando called Tonester Paints. Going to be painting some backdrops to go along with like seasonal portraits moving forward. I do love the white backdrop, and I love the muted like off white on the other side of the wall in the studio. But I do miss this aspect of having a color that can contrast with more neutral tones.
Well, there was one you just recently posted this shoot. We talked about
Yeah,
him earlier. And so you and Bennett Looper, and you were talking about this white wall, how I guess
yeah,
typically you're shooting the other way.
hmm
But in this one, you decided, especially showcasing white pants on a white wall,
yeah,
with white shoes. It's
yeah.
a lot of white going on there. But I love just the tones. The obviously the light itself helps one stand off of the other. But I'm assuming this was one of the walls you were just referencing.
Yeah, that's the wall I've been shooting on more recently. I really love the fact that they have real hardwood in the studio. I
Yeah,
feel like a lot of places in downtown Birmingham are moving to like this linoleum fake wood type flooring. So I, I love the tones of the hardwood, and being able to shoot that way. Obviously contrasted with the shoe and the pant a little bit to give you some depth there,
yeah.
versus more of a flat look if we were on the other wall.
Oh, and I
Also,
the
we got to repaint. Oh
texture on
yeah,
that wall is so great. The fact that you've got that sort of, I guess there's this like plaster versus the brick on the other
hmm
side, or the not brick but like cinder block.
yeah.
It's a really cool space. What were you just saying?
Oh, the other side is the psych wall, and
Right.
everything's just white. But also on this wall that you're looking at, just above his head, out of frame, are some rollers where there are some backdrops. But that's where I'm going to put the painted backdrop, so I can start rolling down this color portrait, or color background for portraits. So
I
hopefully
look
we can
forward
get
to.
some of those up soon.
Yeah, I want to see what that looks like. This paint that you had like custom made sounds really interesting.
I didn't have it custom made. He is a custom paint maker, so all of his paints are pretty hard to duplicate,
Mm.
just given his process. But it's called Tonester paints, and the specific color is called Storms in Paris. It's a very like greenish blue color. Um, but yeah, green's my favorite color. Even though I'm wearing red right now, green's my
Hey, I
favorite
get it.
color.
Green's mine too.
Yeah,
I when I wear red, usually it brings out too much red in my skin, so I usually
I
stick
feel
to
it.
green. Okay, so I always try to ask this question: Who inspires you? You've actually listed off quite a few photographers that I think you look up to, but I'd be
Hmm.
curious to know like who inspires you, and I think we've already probably touched on some of this too, but locally, who is it that you get to work with or work around? And again, you've touched on some of this, but that pushes you to new levels, pushes you creatively. If you want to rehash, feel free
Yeah.
to, or if you want to add to it, feel free to.
I'm gonna read through some names that all inspire me, and then I'm gonna focus in on a couple because,
Love it.
like you said, there's a lot in Birmingham, and there's a lot of people um, that inspire me. I mean, the guy who gave me my first professional job, Jannard, my career wouldn't be what it is without him. It actually wouldn't exist without him, or maybe it would. It just would have taken longer, but
I
I
think there's
literally
a
would not.
list of people that could say a very similar thing about Jannard. He seems to
Yeah,
be. I'm not going to call him the granddad or dad of
yeah,
of the creative industry in Birmingham because that's probably a little bit too much credit that
hmm
he wouldn't want as well as he's not that old, but
yeah,
he seems to have fostered
yeah.
creativity in so many people and given so many people opportunities. So, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, and then I would say just this list of people, it's their perspective and then how different of a mindset they bring to a shoot or a project than I do that really pushes me to think about things differently. I would say like Alex Kiker, Dustin Harrelson, Grant with 99 Natives, Delane Hurd, uh, Jacob, known as Jacob's Camera on
Yeah,
Instagram.
yeah,
Uh, Man, there's so many. One guy who's been a really good mentor in this space has been Brian Johnson.
yeah.
Uh, I would say he's been critical for my career because there were a couple years ago where business was slow. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have an idea of like how I was going to make a career out of this, and I thought about selling everything. And he's
Mhm.
like, "No, don't." I was going to go back to sales, which people get this wrong about my story. I enjoyed my old job. I really did. I haven't worked there in 3 years, and I still talk to my boss every month. I do love that place. I love this more though. So I owe the fact that I still have a career to Brian Johnson keeping me in it. I would say from a coloring standpoint, my two biggest inspirations here in Birmingham are Harrison Tarabella and Morgan Dickerson.
Yeah.
Um, Harrison is one of those guys that I mentioned earlier where like I knew his work well before I ever knew him. And anytime I saw his stuff pop up, I'm like, I should buy a camera. I should buy a camera. And then the second part of me was like, your stuff won't look like his.
He is
uh,
really great, and so many of his travel films, I
yes.
mean, just incredible. I mean, sometimes it
Yeah.
helps that you're in beautiful locations, but
Yeah.
still, not everyone can capture it or tell the story like he does. Not to mention his editing has always been incredible.
Yeah. And then the few times I've been able to work with Morgan and pick his brain on color, he is a mad scientist when it comes to color. He doesn't just do it well, but he knows it well.
Yeah,
And it's really fun to pick his brain about that. Preston Little from a storytelling, and I mentioned it earlier that I was recently really reminded that like everything that I shoot, it's about the people tied to it, and it's those people that give it meaning. That's always been that reminder's always been coming from Preston. Preston is a fantastic model of what it looks like to tell everyone's story in an interesting way, even if the subject isn't interesting.
hmm,
Like he knows that you're passionate about what you're doing, or at least you're somewhat passionate enough to make a career out of it. So he's going to be passionate about it, and he's going to be in on it. And it's not fake. It's incredibly genuine anytime it's coming from him, and it's really inspiring to see because
yeah.
there's a lot of times where like I get out to create something, and I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this. I call Preston. He's like, dude, it's a blessing, man. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're getting the photo and video and do this for a living, and someone liked your look enough to hire you for it. Like, you're gonna be fine. Go do it. So he's been a solid rock for me in that, and also just an inspiration from the telling people story side. And then Bennett Looper, another really good friend of mine. Um, he is a just testament of staying the course and being consistent. I remember becoming friends with him when he was still at Samford, and he was predominantly doing photo, but was thinking about getting into video. And I remember the first video that I saw of his where I was like, oh, like he should just continue to do this. And we've just both been encouraging each other, but he has just stayed so consistent in both his storytelling and his growth and ability to shoot the right thing at the right time and tell the story the right way. And then even in this latest chapter where you're seeing more of this raw side of him on his storytelling and just being blunt about where things are in life and where he's moving towards. And uh, I would say like those are probably my biggest inspirations: Preston, Harrison, Morgan, and Bennett. My Mount
Yeah.
Rushmore of inspiration here in Birmingham.
Well, it seems like you've got a great sphere around you of just really talented creatives. And what's really great about that, this isn't one of these things where you're just soaking in their influence, but you're influencing them as much as they're influencing you. And it seems like, just like we started the conversation off, there's an incredible group of creatives right here in Birmingham that are so talented, that are creating some really incredible art, not just products, but art. And you're definitely one of those, man. I mean, the work that I see come across Instagram from you is just really beautiful. That you're telling incredible stories through a single still image, and I appreciate the work you're doing. I appreciate the conversation that you've allowed us to have today.
Yeah,
And I look forward to seeing more from you. Seriously, I look forward to Japan, man.
of
You
course.
gotta you gotta share a lot of that. So I really look forward to that for you
I
and for the audience.
Oh, I will, and I do want to shine a spotlight on some younger creators because, like, I'm not just inspired by the established work of these guys, but uh, I feel like in somewhere I've like lost that spark of like just wanting to get out and shoot for fun. And some people that I've seen create recently that are on the younger side that have kind of rejuvenated my spirit in that, or like seeing guys like Josh Jackson, who's
Yeah,
an up and coming filmmaker. Jory, known as Jory the
yeah,
Historian on Instagram, she's been great to watch. Balon, and seeing all the
yeah.
stuff that he's been doing. Blake Watley and guys like that, all those younger guys coming up doing things have really, I don't know. In the last couple of weeks, like I've gone out and just taken pictures just to take pictures, and I haven't done that in a very long time. So it's been very encouraging from them.
I agree. I think too many times, I know for me, I dreamed of doing video full time. You know,
Hmm.
like I was in the classroom, I was doing it with my class, I was teaching it and learning it. And I was like, if only I could do this like full time, because I was falling in love with video and photography, but mainly video. And then I got to do it full time for the school district, which was incredible. But then I always thought I'll never be able to do my own business. And now I'm literally sitting in my studio of my own business. And sometimes we need to remind ourselves where we came from. We need to remind ourselves the hope that we had to be
Yeah,
where we are now. Because too many times, I know I'm guilty of this, it becomes work, you know, and
yeah.
and at times you just get weighed down by it. And maybe it's the financial aspect of it, or maybe it's the load of work that you end up having to do. But sometimes we need to remind ourselves, almost back to what you were talking about with the low angles of the photography. We need to remember what it's like to be that kid that dreamed big
Yeah.
and then realize we've achieved quite a bit of that dream, and maybe remind ourselves to dream even bigger.
I do make it a point to try to journal every day, and on those days where it does feel heavy, I write at the top of the page, "It's a blessing to be tired from the work that I prayed for."
Mm, I like it. I think we all need to be reminded of that, definitely.
Easier written and said than lived out. Uh, but
Of course.
but writing that reminder, eventually that mindset sets in of like, yeah, like I'm tired, but I'm getting, to do my passion. So
Yeah. Agreed. Well,
get some
listen,
get some rest.
definitely some well deserved rest. Mason David Erwin, congratulations on all that you've been able to achieve, man. The work that you are doing is incredible. The skills, the hours. We talked about the number of pictures you've taken on a single camera, like hours and hours of reps that you've been able to put in.
Yeah,
Um, Thank you, man. Thank you for sitting down and having this conversation. It really is
yeah,
an honor to get to know you and see your work. And I look forward to maybe we can grab a coffee together, or like I
yeah.
said, I'll hold the ladder while you climb up on it. So
We'll get you on one of these shoots. Thank you for everything that you do and highlighting Birmingham and Alabama, artists. It's really incredible what you're doing and putting a spotlight on these things. And thank you to any of my family and friends that might see this, because there were a lot of people who thought I was crazy and going into a quarter life crisis when I bought my camera. But yeah, if I didn't have the support of family and friends, wouldn't be here. So thank you to everyone.
awesome, awesome.